the whistling man of Route 66. Daniel Mercer hated driving at night, especially through Arizona. The desert always felt wrong after midnight. Too empty, too quiet, like the world itself had stopped breathing. Rain hammered against the windshield of his old Ford pickup while miles of lonely highway stretched endlessly ahead. Route 66 looked abandoned beneath the storm clouds. Daniel checked the clock. 1:47 a.m. Still 3 hours from Albuquerque. His eyes burned from exhaustion. He turned up the radio. Static. Only static. Perfect, he muttered. Lightning flashed across the desert. And that's when he saw the man, standing beside the highway, perfectly still, wearing a black suit. Daniel slowed slightly. The stranger looked old-fashioned, like he belonged in another decade. His pale skin almost glowed under the headlights. And he was smiling. Not a normal smile. A stretched smile. Too wide. The man slowly raised one finger, asking for a ride. Daniel hesitated. Everything about the stranger screamed danger. But the storm was brutal, and the nearest town was miles away. Against his better judgment, Daniel pulled over. The passenger door opened slowly. The man climbed inside. The smell hit instantly. Wet dirt, rotting wood, something dead. Daniel forced up a light smile. Rough night to be walking. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he began softly whistling. A slow haunting melody, like a lullaby. Daniel glanced sideways. "You got a name." The man kept whistling. Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The truck suddenly felt freezing cold. His breath became visible. What the hell? Then Daniel noticed something horrifying. The seat beneath the stranger was completely dry, even though his clothes looked soaked. Lightning flashed again. Daniel glanced at the side mirror. The passenger seat reflection was empty. His heart nearly stopped. The stranger finally spoke. "Have you ever seen someone die?" His voice sounded unnatural, like several voices layered together. Daniel swallowed hard. "What?" The man slowly turned his head. Completely black eyes stared back at him. "I asked." The stranger whispered. "Have you ever watched someone die?" Daniel slammed the brakes. The truck screeched across the wet highway. "Get out," Daniel snapped. The stranger smiled wider. "I can't." Suddenly the radio turned on by itself. Static screamed through the speakers. Then voices emerged. Crying, begging, screaming. Daniel stared in horror. A woman's voice sobbed desperately. "Please don't let him take me." Another voice screamed in agony. Then another. And another. The stranger leaned closer. "You can hear them." Daniel shoved against the driver door. "What are you?" The man ignored him. Outside the truck, figures slowly appeared in the darkness. Dozens of people standing beside the road. Men, women, children, all pale, all staring silently. Lightning flashed, and Daniel saw their faces clearly. Rotting skin, broken necks, missing eyes. Dead? The truck light flickered violently. The strangers outside vanished. Daniel floored the gas pedal. The truck roared forward through the storm. His breathing became frantic. "You're insane," Daniel whispered. The stranger smiled. "They call me the Whistling Man." Daniel froze. He knew that name. 3 months earlier, online forums exploded with stories about disappearances along Route 66. Truckers reported a mysterious hitchhiker. People who picked him up vanished forever. Most believed it was just internet nonsense. Urban legend garbage. But now, Daniel was sitting beside it. The Whistling Man continued humming softly. "You shouldn't whistle at night," he said calmly. "My mother told me it attracts the dead." Daniel's phone suddenly buzzed. And no signal. Yet a voicemail notification appeared. A known number. Hands trembling, Daniel pressed play. Static filled the speaker. Then, his wife screamed. "Daniel, help me." His blood turned cold. "Emily." The voicemail continued. Crying, screaming, then horrible crunching sounds. Bones breaking. Daniel nearly crashed. "How do you know my wife?" The Whistling Man smiled slowly. "She screamed beautifully." Rage exploded inside Daniel. He punched the stranger directly in the face. Pain shot through his hand instantly, like punching solid concrete. The Whistling Man didn't even blink. Instead, his mouth slowly opened wider and wider. Bones cracked loudly. Skin stretched unnaturally. Inside his mouth were hundreds of tiny human mouths, all whispering, "Help us!" Daniel screamed. The truck hydroplaned violently. Everything spun. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. Daniel woke upside down. Blood dripped from his forehead. Rain poured through shattered windows. The truck engine hissed weakly. Groaning in pain, he unbuckled himself and crawled outside. The desert was silent. No highway sounds. No wind. Nothing. Then he saw it. An old motel standing nearby. Sunset Pines Motel. The neon sign flickered weakly. One room upstairs glowed dimly. Daniel looked around desperately. The whistling man was gone. Then, soft whistling echoed across the desert. Far away, but getting closer. Daniel stumbled toward the motel. The office door creaked open. An old woman sat behind the counter smoking a cigarette. She looked up slowly, and immediately froze. "You picked him up," she whispered. Daniel's stomach tightened. "You know what that thing is." The woman stood shakily. "I knew someone would bring him here eventually." Thunder shook the building. Daniel stepped closer. "Tell me what's happening." The old woman glanced nervously outside. "My husband picked him up in 1989. Her voice trembled. "He came back different." Daniel listened carefully. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating. Every night he'd stand outside whistling toward the desert. She lit another cigarette with shaking hands. Then one night, her eyes filled with tears. He opened his mouth. Daniel felt sick already. And there were voices inside him. Lightning flashed outside. The motel lights flickered. "He killed everyone staying here that night," she whispered. "Everyone except me." A floorboard creaked upstairs. Daniel looked up. Room 7. The glowing room. Someone was moving inside. The old woman grabbed Daniel's arm suddenly. "Don't go upstairs." Too late. The whistling started again. Inside the motel. Slow. Close. Daniel's blood froze. A shadow appeared at the top of the staircase. Tall. Thin. Smiling. The whistling man. Standing perfectly still. Rainwater dripped from his suit. His black eyes locked onto Daniel. Then every motel room door slowly creaked open at once. Daniel stared in horror. People stood inside the rooms. Dead people. Dozens of them. Victims. Their mouths hung unnaturally open. Static hissed from inside their throats. The whistling man tilted his head. "Stay a while." Every corpse stepped into the hallway. Daniel ran. The dead sprinted after him. Their bones cracked violently with every movement. The old woman screamed downstairs. Daniel burst through the back exit into the storm. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, but the motel behind him was gone. Daniel stopped breathing. Only empty desert remained. No building. No lights. Nothing. Then cold fingers grabbed his shoulder. Daniel spun around screaming. A young girl stood behind him, maybe 8 years old. Her skin looked gray. Water poured endlessly from her mouth. "Have you seen my daddy?" she whispered. Daniel stumbled backward. The little girl pointed behind him slowly. Dozens of ghostly figures emerged from the darkness, all staring, all smiling. Then they began whistling together. The sound was unbearable. Daniel covered his ears. Blood dripped from his nose. The ghosts slowly surrounded him. And through the crowd walked the whistling man. Calm, patient, hungry. "You hear them now," he whispered. Daniel fell to his knees. "What do you want from me?" The creature smiled wider. "To be remembered." Suddenly Daniel saw visions flash through his mind. Drivers, travelers, families, all picking up the hitchhiker, all disappearing. He saw the truth. The whistling man was never human. Something ancient lived beneath Route 66. Something feeding on lonely travelers for decades. And every victim became part of it. The voices, the mouths, the screaming souls trapped forever inside its body. Daniel looked around desperately. The ghosts closed in slowly. Then his phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Emily's voice. Soft this time. "Daniel, wake up." Everything froze. The ghosts stopped moving. The whistling man tilted his head strangely. "Wake up," Emily whispered again. Suddenly, Daniel gasped violently. He was back inside his crashed truck, upside down, rain pouring through broken glass. His phone lay beside him. No voicemail, no motel, nothing. Daniel stared around in panic. Was it a dream? Hallucination? Then he noticed muddy footprints, leading away from the passenger door, and soft whistling echoed outside in the storm. Daniel crawled from the wreckage. The highway was empty, until lightning flashed. A figure stood far down the road, watching him. The whistling man slowly raised one finger again, asking for another ride. Daniel ran into the desert without looking back. Police found the truck the next morning, but Daniel Mercer was never seen again. Some truckers claim they still hear whistling late at night along Route 66. And sometimes, during heavy storms, Drivers report seeing two hitchhikers standing beside the highway. One wears a black suit. The other looks exactly like Daniel Mercer.